Hey everybody, ReefGrrl here, and welcome to ReefGrrl Live. I am so happy you could make it. The whole idea here is to have some fun, chat, get some questions answered, maybe show off what you're doing, and get to know each other a little bit better. So sit back, relax, grab a drink. The stream is about to begin. Here we are, another Saturday night. Welcome everybody. It's already almost the end of May and I can't quite believe it. We already have a few people here in the chat. Hey Benny Fernandez was first this week. Braveheart Reefer 525, hello from the UK. WVU Reefer was kind of second. Chi-Town Reefer, hello. And there's Johnny Martinez. Hi Johnny. T40 is here. Nice to see you, T. I hope you're staying well. Hi, Lynn Reef Nerd. Nice to see you, too. We've got Chase V. Hey, Chase. And Bongos Reef. Somebody else from the UK sacrificing their sleep in the middle of the night to be with us. That's great. Hey, Carlos23. My favorite Reef Girl. Yeah, you're my favorite Carlos, too. That's hilarious. Hi, Mr. DKH. Wow, we've immediately popped up to 15 people. That's wonderful. Oh, there's Alex G's aquarium. Hey, Alex, I hope you're doing well. Haven't seen you around for a bit, and I always think of people that I kind of have lost track of for a few weeks and hope that they're doing well or their family is doing well, because in these days, you just don't know. Abdil Villalobos. Hola from Phoenix. Okay, let me try that again. Abdiel Villalobos. That's a little better, I think. Hey, Broke Reef Man 45 and Camaro Kid. This is really nice. Wow, we popped up to 20 already. And I do have somebody waiting in the waiting room. And it's somebody that I've looked forward to for a long time, hoping he could make it onto the stream one night. It's JV Gwaltney. We often see him in the comments, and I'll let him tell you why, but basically he's not where his tank is very often on a Saturday night. So JV, I will bring you into the studio. I think I've said hi to everybody. Oh, Abdiel Villalobos says, good job. Thank you. I do my best not to butcher people's names, but you know, sometimes. Okay, JV. There's JV's tank.
Hi there, are we in the stream?
We sure are.
More or less. We got where is that light coming from?
It looks like a reflection of something.
Yeah.
Do you have
Okay. Did that get it?
Nope.
No. Wow.
Unless there's a delay. It's a kind of a streak on the left side of your screen.
Might have been from the TV, but I turned it off. Well, if I have to, I will just.
If you rotate your camera to the right, you might be able to. No, sorry, that was the wrong way, to the left. Ah. That's a little better.
I'll just hold it. I was trying to. I don't know how to make it reverse, so I just shoot it out the back. But anyway, if you can forgive the mess.
Oh, the light went away for a second, and then it came back. Do you have a filter lens on your camera? Because it could be picking up light that's behind you and shining it into your camera.
Okay. That's interesting. Yeah. I've never put it on the front before.
It's back.
That's what it is. And is there some way to make it reverse the camera in this software and shoot out of the back?
Yes, there should be an option to flip your camera on the screen.
Let's see. Now I'm scared. Video.
Oh, now we're black. I'm just going to mute your mic, JV, and say hi to a few more people. Okay. Let's see here. Who else have we got? Oh, Calypso's Reefs. Nice to see you, Calypso's. Hector, hope you're doing well. Bongo's Reef says if you use a lens hood, it works better. Awesome. Oh, we've got somebody else in the waiting room too. Yeah, JV, Chase says if you scooch the lens over a bit, you may be able to eliminate that reflection. Hey, William Peace Jr. Nice to see you.
All right, we might have it now. Figured out
Sometimes it takes a bit to figure it out. Oh. Oh, we lost JV, but we got Amro right in the middle of drinking his coffee.
What's up, ReefGrrl?
What's up with you, Amro? You got
I'm exhausted. I've been like working on my tank for the last 2 days, and
Yep.
you know how it is.
Oh, my feet are really sore. I've had to start wearing shoes around the house because I just can't. I mean, my slippers just have no support, and by the end of the day, I can hardly walk. It's terrible.
You start with okay, this is only going to take me like 2 hours in and out, and you're done. And before you know it, it's like a good 12-hour day. So
yeah, no kidding, no kidding. Hey, Hyun Lee and Terrence Little Ocean, nice to see you guys. And Gabe's Reef Tampa's here. That's great. Okay, we're gonna try to get JV in here again. Okay, JV, we got you back. There we go.
Okay.
No more reflection.
No more reflection. That's good, but I can't see on the tripod, so I'm just going to hold it.
Yeah.
How's everybody?
There we go.
This tank has been a source of frustration.
Oh, dear.
However, I love it. I've had a fish-only saltwater tank for many years at my workplace, and this was purchased as a starter to hopefully have about a 200-gallon tank by the end of the year. And as a learning process, we went ahead and invested in all of this stuff and learned how to use it.
Wow.
So we're ready with everything except we have to do some electrical work and figure out exactly where we want it to place. But like you remember the torch, he's never been happy. He's not doing good up there. That was a pink frog spawn that was doing very well until this MP40 fell down and landed in it one night.
Oh, no.
And so he's not been happy. This Duncan was doing well until some dummy, when he was cleaning the tank, let the hose wrap around it and pull it off its rock. And it hasn't forgiven me yet. I still have hope that it'll come back. The frog spawn, or the hammer rather, has been doing well, but he was backed up. He was in this spot, and he grew into this rock. So I finally, today, re-glued him and put him up here. And then there's not a lot else in here. There's a GSP. Not even I can kill GSP, which is saying something. A few, they're not open yet, but there are a few little zoas here that have done well. And then a Flavia that I can't take the credit for, but I traded for. And it's done good so far. But what I wanted to do is I wanted to show you something, and then I'm trying to do this tank bare bottom, and if you recall, and I'm going to walk to another room. There was a time when I was fighting green hair algae. I had a big die over the weekend, and we came back in, and it was a disaster. And I had some of your pros looking at a piece of algae that I had taken off, or a piece of rock I had taken out. And it was hard for anyone to tell anything. So I took some more. These were rocks that used to be in my quarantine tank that I took down and put in the main tank. And so this is hydrogen peroxide. They've been sitting in here for about 8 hours. And even after a hydrogen peroxide bath and a toothbrush, this doesn't, whatever this green is, and I just lost my video. Let me see if I can find it. Okay, so I was just going to show you again some of this. Yeah, I thought I was going to show you.
Yeah, we can see a rock.
Yeah, my screen's blown up about 300%, so I'm not sure where you're looking.
There we go.
This is, it's not like it's hair algae. I can't scrub it off with a toothbrush. It's been sitting in peroxide for hours. It's almost like it's a dye.
Huh.
And I've always wondered, somebody had said one time that there is such a thing as green coralline, but this doesn't appear to be coralline either. But I just wanted to show y'all that if anyone had anything like this, because it's growing up, it's grown on all of the rocks in the tank. And just now, after several months, some of the pink coralline that we seeded it with has started to grow in little patches throughout the tank. But all of what you see on this rockscape, if I had, I'd show you my girlfriend while we're at it. Hey, Zoe, say hi to everybody.
Look at her, what a cutie.
She's a sweetheart most of the time. So I'm gonna walk back to the tank, and then I won't be on the camera but another couple of minutes with you, and then I'll go to the other feature. But if I took and went to all white light, most of what you would see on these rocks that looks kind of pink would be green. And then there's little patches that you really, I don't think you can see, but there are little patches where where just now in the last 2 or 3 weeks, the coralline is kind of growing through the green.
Yeah, we can see it. Yeah.
And alkalinity consumption has gone up dramatically. But I just don't know what the green is. I don't know if that's some other form of algae or if it's just remnants from the hair algae. We did vibrant, we did like tuna sauce. Yeah, we did basically all the tricks that we could find, and it never really took this off of the rocks.
There is a comment here, Skinner JW. Hey, Skinner JW, nice to see you. Just a green film algae. It'll naturally go away as it matures. And he says he had it for a couple months.
Okay. Well,
so that's what I'm starting to wonder now that I've seen it closer, because when I first started my tank and put the mollies in, for several months the rocks were pure green, but it wasn't fuzzy or three-dimensional. It was just flat green all over everything, and that did gradually darken up and get covered up. So it's quite possible that that's all it is part of the natural maturing of your tank. I don't know, we've got
so that I can't go total on the incompetent side. We did this. This tank doesn't have a sump. The only thing underneath it is a 5-gallon top off and a dose system. And so I was trying to get my wife to fall in love with the hobby. She kind of did, but now she's jealous of what she calls the rocks. But I didn't want to just start off with, 180, 200 gallon tank and not have any clue the husbandry that was going to be required. And I do know this: if you ever have any other kind of saltwater tank, it will have a sump in it. It will have a way to deal with the scrubbing of the algae and the cleaning down below, because back here, this is jam-packed behind this little thing here that you can possibly imagine. With the 4 probes and the top off and the calcium alkalinity and the top off sensors, there's no room for anything else back there.
Yeah, well, the only comment I would have is you mentioned your torches were not happy. It looks to me as if they're a little bit high in the tank and might be getting too much light. Then that's just from my own experience. The highest I've ever had a torch in a tank is about a third of the way up from the bottom. So I don't know whether you've had them down there and they didn't do well, or they've always been up here, but
I've only had 2, and I don't have any problem putting him down here in this other spot. The par, this light's set normally at 50% blue and 0% white. So the par readings up at the top of the rock are like 100, 110.
Oh, right, okay.
It's not real bright. And down at the, it's like 70, 80 in the middle and 50, 60 on top.
Oh, so it might not be that. Mr. DKH says, as long as it's not long and stringy, you're fine. It's natural. So it could just be that natural process, and maybe it's taking a little longer. And now that you're getting the coralline, it looks to me like your rocks are aging nicely. They're not white. They're a nice sort of tan brown color.
They're green, trust me.
Yeah. No, but really that is a phase. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm tending to think that.
Here that's done okay.
Can I ask what your cleanup crew is like?
The only thing I have in here now are 2 clownfish and a tang. I had a shrimp that passed away, and the local fish shop has not been able to get a cleaner shrimp. And I do not currently have any snails or hermits in here. Matter of fact, I've never had any in here. I've got them at my tank at work. But
I think if you could get sorry, Cindy, you want to go?
Oh no, I was going to say you're right. I never even thought of asking that.
Yeah, I think if you could get some snails from either a store or a local reefer, it might help away with your problem. It looks just like normal tank maturity stuff. It doesn't seem like concerning. It actually doesn't look that bad considering that you have no cleanup crew.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I have the kind of snails I have in the tank at work wouldn't, the tank at work's got sand in it, and they're the kind that if they fall over, they can't right themselves. And so I'd have to get probably a different snail for this. And the local fish store has not been able to get cleanup crew and shrimp here in the last few weeks. As a matter of fact, I was in there today, hoping to pick up a couple of things. But yeah, what kind of snails would you recommend?
So I don't see any sand, so you should like Astrea would be really good, and I like Trochus. I like Trochus over the Astrea because they could right themselves, but if you don't have any sand, then if the Astreas fall down, they'll still be able to go back. And I generally like to get a mix of things because, like the different strains, different snails will have different preferences. So by getting a whole bunch of different species of snails, you're kind of covering your bases.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have read where that some of the snails need to be in certain varieties needed to be in cooler temperatures, and I've got this tank set to run at 78, but it usually runs warmer than that without the heater. So, like I said, I hadn't purchased any. I didn't want to just put them in there and then them pass away on me because of they weren't right for the parameters. But you said that the Astrias can right themselves on the bare bottom.
Yeah. So they're bad if you have a sand bed, because if they fall down and they just like get stuck in the sand bed and they die. So I prefer the black-footed snail, the crocus snails, because even if they're in sand, they'll be able to get up. But Astrias are typically like the cheapest and the most common snails you could get, and with a bare bottom tank, they'll be great.
Yeah, I had originally had this great idea that I wanted to have a tank here, and it didn't take but just a couple of days to realize that with a 2-foot window, if you have any current up at the top, you've also got it at the bottom. You can't really do that with a tank with this kind of footprint. So we'll have to wait for the 6-footer, I guess.
And I see Carlos in comments mentioned that blue-legged hermit crabs also work well, and I have a whole bunch of them in my system as well. And I really like emerald crabs as well too. So I have a couple in my system, and they're always picking at the rocks.
Yeah, I have emeralds as well. I tried to buy blue leg hermits, and they're out at the moment. So I'm hoping they get some in the next week or so.
Yeah, they had some emeralds at the store today, but I thought they were primarily for bubble algae, so I didn't bother to grab one.
No, they do work on all types of algae. So even your green hair algae, they aren't enough to completely take it away, but they'll work away at it.
Well, that sounds like a winner.
Yeah, maybe I think that's a good idea. That Amro said get a couple of different things, and they might just complement each other.
Yeah, and I'll go back and look through the comments when I'm on YouTube after we're off the feed and write this down, because my brain isn't. It's been a long day. I only had 1 cup of coffee this morning, and I'm used to about a pot. So.
Oh boy. Well, that's great. Well, I'm so glad you could make it in tonight. It's so nice to see you.
I'm a pastor, and usually on Saturday night, I'm in the parsonage watching the feed from there. And my home, where I'm at today, is about an hour and 15 minutes away. So most of the time I'm not here, and so I haven't been able to really show this tank. But like I said, this was a beginner attempt to grow bigger, and so we need to have success here so the wife will sign off on the bigger tank.
You can, yeah.
That's exactly what I did when I got in the hobby. I got a used like 25-gallon freshwater tank with a hang over the back filter, and I converted it into a saltwater tank, and I gave myself a year. Okay, if I don't kill this thing, I'm gonna get a bigger tank, and it's a slippery slope.
Always learning, that's for sure.
At my age, it'll be just one more, and that'll have to be it. But I love the big, beautiful tanks. They've been something when I have an opportunity to go and see one close up. Yeah.
Well, I mean, it sounds like you've got a good foundation, because just from when you talk about things, you've obviously been doing the research, and now it's just one of those cases where experience is just it's time. You have to go through these things and come out the other end and have something happen, and then you go through the experience, and at the other end you find out whether it was a good thing, a bad thing, a natural thing, an unnatural thing. And it is really tempting to try and cure everything we see that we think is not right with chemicals. I've done it, and I don't anymore because of the years of experience. So you'll get there because I think you got the right sort of mindset to solve the problems.
Well, I will. If you're through with me here, I will cut this off and go back to the regular YouTube stream and listen in for the rest of the evening. I appreciate you.
Awesome.
Advice on this thing. It's been fun, but I have the first 2 or 3 corals we put in here perished, and so I haven't been happy since. But
it's inevitable, unfortunately. It's the learning curve.
It was a little early. I mean, I saw a little bit of coralline looking like it was coming in, so I grabbed a couple of 3 corals off of some kind of purchase pack, and none of them are still with me. So, it's been a learning curve, but I haven't. There's nothing in here that was really expensive by today's standards. The torch was a little bit expensive, and I traded the Fabia for something that wasn't aquarium related. So, but
right.
Other than there's just fairly low cost stuff in here until I learn how to do this.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for looking in. Like I said, I'm gonna shut this piece off and go to the YouTube on the big screen so I can see what's going on and learn from the expert. All right.
Awesome. Good night, Javi, and we'll see you in the chat.
All right, we'll see you in just a minute. Thank you.
Yep. Okay, we have Alex waiting in the waiting room. Let's get Alex in, and he's doing something. I'm giving him a bit of a warning so that I don't surprise him. Hey, Alex, what you up to?
Oh, working on a pump seal replacement, so.
Oh boy.
Just thought
okay.
Don't worry, it's a spare. Everything's okay.
Is this a camera angle thing, or is that pump really as big as your upper torso?
It looks huge.
No, it's,
okay.
Oh my. Okay. Because with what you've got going on, it could have been.
it's a reflow hammerhead, so.
Right.
6,000 gallons per hour.
Wow. And you need it. I'm going to say hi to a few people in the chat here because JV was going through all of his stuff over there, a whole bunch of people popped in. We're up to 34. Wow. I said hi to Skinner JW. And, there's ATF in the house. Hey, Alan. Hey, all. It's the Saturday night crew. It is. I hope you're doing well. I was thinking about you this week because I have to work on that video I was going to work on about your story of fragging your leather corals, and I have all of the footage assembled. I just have to go through and finalize what the narrative is going to be before I send it to you. So just to fill everybody in, a while ago I was asking for people to send short clips from their aquariums, and then I would create a reefer feature video every week showing their aquariums, just for people who might be reluctant to be on camera, and and we still want to see your tanks because it's always interesting to see what other people have got going on. And so ATF in the house had some adventures in fragging leathers, and so I've been working on a video to show you guys what his experience was in this particular case. So I'm still working on it. It's still in the queue. We've been doing a lot of crazy house related things lately. So it's that early stage of building where you have to pick stuff like countertops from squares this big and all that kind of thing. So anyway, all right. Let's get on with this. Mr. DKH, I said hi. Hi, Marcus's Reef. Nice to see you. Oh boy, we got some super chats. I gotta work my way down to that. There we go. Marcus's Reef. Oh, there's Robert Poorman. Nice to see you, Robert. And Lynn Reef Nerd. I think I said hi to you up above, but I don't remember because my brain is fried. Lots of comments about JV's stuff. And PR Fish Girl. Awesome to see you. I hope you're doing well. I'm sure you've been very, very busy. Carlos 23, just because. Thank you, Carlos. Much appreciated. I hope Linda's doing well. I have to get myself a bigger Chad for the next aquarium. So we'll see what that's going to be. Oh, look at this. Got a coffee. The Reefing King, Carlos 23. Thank you, Lynn Reef Nerd. I've been following what you've been up to on Instagram, and holy smokes, you guys, the coral that people have been buying lately and showing on Instagram is just killer. It's just amazing. So nice to see that. I got a new Cinerina yesterday, and I can't buy coral. I shouldn't be buying coral because I'm in the process of moving my reef. This picture behind me is a picture of the corals that have been moved, and they're doing well. So I just have to get the alkalinity to match up a little closer than 5 and 9.5, and then we'll be good to go. Hey, Click Clacks. Oh, he's late. Yep, that's okay. Don't see anybody else new here. I think I've said hi to everybody. And there's JV. He's in the chat saying thank you for the advice. Oh, there's Producer Reef. Okay. So that's hi to all 36 people. Well, maybe not, because not everybody would make a comment, but anyhow. So Alex, is this something that is regular maintenance that you're doing, or did you have a problem you're solving?
So I have Reflow hammerhead pumps. It's got a big AC motor attached to it, and the impeller is housed on the other side of a ceramic seal. So they only last, generally I'll go about a year between replacements. In this case, this one actually did start to leak. There's a few months short, but it's kind of the price you pay with pumps that got seals on them. Mm-hmm. So I have a spare on hand that's got a brand new seal in it. So when it started leaking a little bit, all I had to do was shut it all down, swap it out. Of course, it didn't go the way it was supposed to. It never does. But, I got the other pump started up and running. And I just took this, stripped it down all the way. Finally, I had to, because of where the seal is right in here normally, you'll get salt water and spray on the steel shaft, so it'll start to cause some rust and corrosion. So I ended up taking a sandpaper and even file to it to try and knock all that stuff off. And now it's just clean it all up and put a new seal on.
So this is an external pump, right? That's what your system runs on. So would water flow past that steel shaft? Like, would you risk getting?
This is I'm not gonna pull it out of the bag yet, so I gotta get my silicone gun ready. But I'll get this all assembled. But essentially, what you have is there's a piece of plastic that sits right here, and once I get this seal installed, you'll get to see it. And it's got a spring on it right in here, and then the impeller is got a piece of ceramic right here, and there's a little ceramic ring here. And the idea is that as you screw the impeller onto the motor shaft, it pushes the two together, and that is what stops the water from coming out.
Oh, okay.
So it's constantly got friction on it. So water, it's supposed to hold water back, but and that's the thing about these pumps is the steel will deteriorate over time depending on how much marine life gets sucked into it. Salt water itself is fairly abrasive, so every now and then you'll get like a few drops come out, and it'll kind of build up some salt around it throughout the year. And then this last one was the first time that I actually had it where it was dripping water out and made a little puddle. So, but
yeah, not what you want to see when you come down and look at your tank.
it's something that it can happen, and I actually knew that it was going to happen. I had saw that there was some salt creep around the pump, so I know that there was some really light amounts of water coming out.
Mm-hmm.
They're good pumps. It's just you got to keep up with the seal maintenance is all.
Yeah, stay ahead of it.
Yeah, they're fairly efficient too. It's only drawn about 400 watts, and for 600 gallons per hour or 6,000 gallons per hour, that's pretty darn
Oh
good.
my, wow. Hey, Reefing with O, where have you been, Seymour? Nice to see you. I saw you a couple of times on Insta lately, so glad to see you here. Hope you're doing well. You're in that hot spot of New York City, Trouble Central. And there's Phil, Reef Keeper. Hey, Reef Keeper. PR Fish Girl is giving up her calcium reactor. I missed it, whether she's swapping it out for something else. That's what the chat is talking about. Yeah. Yeah, I'm a little afraid. Well, no, that's not the right word. I'm actually looking forward to it. When I take down the XL425, I'm really looking forward to taking apart that diabolical valve and seeing what the heck it looks like inside after running for 3 years. Because the way that thing is supposed to control the water, I'm regularly, probably, I want to say once a week, having to adjust it. And I've learned that every once in a while I have to open it wide up and just let the water go swooshing through it, because of course food gets stuck in there because it's a diaphragm, and it'll start to gurgle and gurgle, and the water will get to within an inch of the top glass, which is still fine. It goes over the emergencies. I'm not afraid it's going to overflow, but I can tell there's something up with it. And I would never say this in front of the tank, but I'm very glad it's lasted this long without failing. So I'm looking forward to taking it apart to actually look inside and see how bad it is. I had considered at one point, I know Pelfrey has a video on replacing the valve in his. I don't know if he still uses that system or whether he replaced it with a different type of valve, but I've never got up the nerve to actually take all that apart, get a replacement, take it apart, and look after it. So it's going to be truly interesting to take this thing apart and just see what everything looks like after running for 3 years. I mean, I've cleaned and maintained equipment, but the actual plumbing, the inside of the overflow and the return pipes is going to be interesting to look at. Like, really.
Are you planning to put it back into use?
I don't know. I doubt it. I'm thinking of selling it.
Right. So I'll tell you my experience. I had this great/awful idea of trying to clean the plumbing when my tank turned 3 years. And I took it apart, and it was like full of like sponges, and you would be amazed at the stuff that was in there.
No,
and
I
I sort of, yeah, I mean, yeah, you know, right?
Yeah,
and
yeah.
The problem is, like, everything was kind of growing, like there was a nice seal and everything was kind of growing really well. So I started to clean it, and like I'm starting to crunch things. And then when I put it back together, it was leaking from the bottom. So that was another case of like something that I thought was going to take 2 hours, and it took me the whole day. So I had to like Teflon tape. So I'm like, I'm not going to touch this thing again until the tank is done, because, you know, it's kind of like once you take it apart with everything that's been growing, I don't think unless you're going to totally like clean everything, it's not going to like seal again.
It's like its own little ecosystem after a while. I'm going to take a picture of that area of my sump and put it on Instagram. You guys can check it out. My return, where it joins the pipe that goes up, the salt creep on that thing is unreal. It's like half an inch thick in some spots, and I just don't touch it. Just leave it alone, because I think that's one of the things. Don't put your hands in your tank. Well, do your best to keep your hands out of your sump when it comes to that as well. It's crazy. Yeah, reefing with O. Seymour says, "Oh, hi, acro breeder." The comments jumped. He said he replaced the Red Sea valve and it was a great decision. Yeah. Yep, and I don't know how far along in your tank that was, Seymour, whether it was when it was fairly new or whether it was part of a regular thing that you were going to do once a year or whatever, but mine has been running as of May 29th. That's when the cycle started. So 3 years ago, 2017. So that'll by then it should be empty though. So yeah, so I think we're going to instead of moving it into storage, I'm going to try and sell it. And that was my husband's suggestion, and I think it's a great idea, because that way, instead of moving it into storage and then moving it again to the new house and then going, now what are we going to do with it? I'll just clean it up and see if someone would like to buy it, because we haven't super modified it. We haven't changed anything major about it. We just use it differently than it was intended. There's a couple holes drilled in the cabinet between the shelves and the sump part for dosing hoses, and we installed a couple of other shelves that were useful, but we shall see. That's going to be in the next few weeks. Oh boy, I'm getting butterflies thinking about going through all of that. It's so.
And what's the state of the livestock moves? Is it all in your temporary tank, or?
No, I have not broken any major pieces off the reef yet. What I've done is moved sandbed stuff, and like I said, the photo behind me is some of the loose stuff, but I haven't moved any recently. When the alk dropped to 5.1 in the temporary tank, I didn't want to move anything else until I got it up properly. So the last test I did, it was 7.4. So another week and it should be around 8.4. And so hopefully by next week, maybe Tuesday, I should be able to take some more stuff. Because I have the big fluffy cinerinas, and I've got, just my war coral is actually on a rock. It's growing onto the surrounding rocks, but it is on a separate rock. It's a big sort of flat, it's a piece of Texas holy rock, a big flat piece. And it's on top of a barnacle, and it's grown down around the barnacle. So I'm going to try and get that out and take it as well. And then when it comes time to move the pieces of the reef, all of that stuff's going to have to be pushed to one side while I place it, and then organized and arranged. It just, who knows? I might have to actually set up another tank, a 20-gallon, to put some of the larger sandbed pieces, because the footprint front to back is only 18 inches in the 90. So I don't know.
The joys of upgrading.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Reefing with old Red Sea valve was trash after a couple of years. Spears gate valve is the way to go. Yeah, I'll have to remember that. I mean, I do like the system, the way they set it up with the two pipes going down and one coming up. I really do like that. And in my case, the valve will be in the basement where the sump is, so easy to reach. This whole sump thing is going to be set up so that everything's easy to reach. No crawling around on the floor. It's not doing it anymore. I'm getting too old. I can't get up again.
But I have a really simple solution for the overflow for the Red Sea Reefer, and so I think you could use my solution if you have a DC pump. I just turn the Vectra up and down, because the amount of fine control that you have on the Vectra is so much more than the actual stupid valve. So if the water is overflowing, I just dial it that couple of percentage. If it's it goes down, then I up the flow. So that's my solution. I've been living with it for almost 4 years now, and
that's a really good solution. I love DC pumps. I have the Jabo DC S7000. And I do adjust it periodically, but I'm more afraid of overfilling the upper tank than I am of, the overflow getting jammed up. So I don't know. I'm just trying not to mess with it.
the perspective on Alex G's thing. He looks like he's working with like a nuclear warhead or something.
A turbine, giant turbine.
Don't worry. I think I've done this a couple of times.
All right,
You
so
know, and it makes me wonder just how big are those tanks you have, Alex?
Shark Tank.
It's all an optical illusion.
Yeah. It's funny, eh? When you do videos and stuff, I don't know if you guys run into this, but I find when I look into the tank, of course, you see three-dimensionally, and as soon as you get that on a video, all of that perspective is gone, and you just can't get that sense of depth anymore. Even with all these new phone cameras, it's so hard to really try to get across what you're seeing.
We need to have like a YouTuber that does like 3D videos where we have to wear the glasses to watch the tank. Wouldn't it be so awesome? And like,
Oh my god!
the rashes come straight at you. It would be
What
great.
a great idea!
Yeah,
The
I'll
built-in
get the-
filter.
I'll put a VR camera on my mantis shrimp's meal.
Oh,
Let her
that would
come
be
up.
awesome.
Oh, that'd be fun. So, I'm not even going to get into it. I'm sure it involves multiple cameras and everything else, but oh man, that is so tempting.
It'd be cool.
Hey,
Somebody
Romans,
has to do it. Somebody has to pioneer
Yeah.
3D reefing YouTube videos.
Yeah. And then what it would be a premiere. So you'd announce it a week ahead of time, and everybody could get their 3D glasses ready. I found 3 pairs of 3D glasses in a drawer I cleaned out because, of course, we're doing all the purging and stuff, right?
Yeah.
And I don't even remember. Well, I saw one 3D movie once, and I hated it. 'Cause I just hate the experience of it. So,
They've
but I don't know
been
where
getting
they came
better.
from.
They've been getting better. Yeah.
Yeah. That's hilarious. We do have a question. Maybe you guys can answer. I just bought a Duncan and a hammer. The hammer's not opening. Same with the Duncan. I checked the water parameters and it looks good. Lots of detail we would need for that. Romans Reef, you say parameters are good, and the thing with Duncans I've found is magnesium matters. So if you know what your magnesium level is and it's within the normal range, then it won't be magnesium. But if your magnesium is too low, the Duncan won't be happy. What about you, Alex? Any other, like, flow matters too, right?
Well, Duncan's could be a good indicator coral, and I mean hammers are generally pretty easy going too. I would say, yeah, I'd want to know what water parameters were tested, the temperature that the tank's holding at, and the kind of water flow that those corals are in, along with any tank inhabitants that they might have.
Yeah, that's what Phil is saying. Give it some time. They can be irritated for a couple of days if you just got it. That's what a couple people are talking about. It's true. I think I was corresponding on Instagram today with a person who got a pectinia and was very concerned because the flesh was torn and he felt it was starving and wasn't sure what to do. And he'd only had it for 3 days, but it seemed to be deteriorating in those 3 days. And I mean, you guys know what I went through with my Space Invader colony, how it looked like death, and the only way I knew there was anything alive was by using a UV flashlight to check for fluorescence. And then it came back and it was beautiful. And it kind of struck me too that 3 days isn't very long for some corals to give up on them, or to start over treating, if you know what I mean. Like sometimes you just need to step back and watch it. I think the only corals that are really going to check out are SPS if they, lose their tissue. Most of the other ones, I don't know, if you give it time, sometimes that works.
I had a Aganipora once that was, I thought was dead, and I chucked it in a corner of the tank because I didn't have time to take it out, use the scraper to kind of move it to the side. And I was surprised. It came back. It came back looking better than it did before. So.
Yep. Hey, Chimp the Reefer.
Yeah, I tend to agree. Sometimes you just gotta, even if it looks dead, don't just throw it out. Just throw it in a corner or just watch it and see what it does.
Yeah. What
So
else
I
we
have
got?
a fun little story for you guys.
Ooh,
Yay.
do tell.
Um, and so if you've been watching my channel, you know that I'm kind of in the middle of changing things, and
Mm-hmm.
let's just say that I went like full bore. I made substantive changes to the tank, and effectively I have a 4-year-old tank that is just it's a new tank.
Oh boy.
Yeah, so I went for the whole full renovation. So part of that involved like remounting frags and doing things. And I have these pair of clownfish that I've had. One was like 5 years old from my first tank ever, Nemo. He was a female, he was a male, but then the female was Mino because she was mean to Nemo, and Mino went carpet surfing, so now Nemo is the female. And they've just been getting really aggressive. So now it's Nemo and Valentine, and so part of my changes, I actually like kind of moved their home. They were hosted not a mushroom, a whole bunch of mushrooms were kind of allowing them to hang around, and they hated it. So they literally like Nemo bit me several times. I'm not sure if you could see here, and it hurt. But that's not the worst of it. I'm not sure if anybody's experienced this. So I had this like beautiful vision of like specific corals going into place, and I have this fun little system of mounting them. So I actually like took a piece of Tonga reef shelf, and I used a reciprocating hammer to kind of slice it like ham, and that's going to be my frag plug. And so I positioned them, and I put the glue on, and I put them on top, and this looks perfect. And I leave my hand out, and the clownfish would just run, and they would like push the rocks off and just blow it, and then the bit of rock with the glue would fall in the sand, and then now he's got like sand all over the glue, and like they knocked pieces. Like I spent $400 on a single frag, and they knocked it over and smashed it against the rock. I wanted to like throttle Nemo. It was like so pissed off.
Right.
It was like
and fire him against the wall.
I've never had that experience. Like they went ballistic on me. Anything, all of my great aquascaping ideas, they rejected it immediately.
I've had clownfish draw blood.
Wow.
They get mean. And back in my maintenance days, I remember we had this little like triangular tank in a home, and it had really bad access in the back. And my friend / boss, he's like, "You can go ahead and clean the sides of the tank and stuff." And I'm like, "Okay." And he had a little smirk going, and I'm like, "All right." And they only had a handful of fish, and one of them was a tomato clown. And the second I put my hand in there, and you had to like get up and lay on top the tank, so there's no easy way out, the thing just started attacking me. So after it drew blood on me, then he's like, "Oh yeah, by the way, get the net out and put that clownfish in a bucket, because I won't clean the tank with it in there."
That's crazy. Well, I think I told you guys about Sid Vicious, who was the clownfish that came with the tank I was given, which started me in all of this hobby. And the salinity was so bad, I'm sure it contributed to his mood. It was like 1.038, whatever that is in parts per thousand. But he was tiny. He was probably an inch or an inch and a quarter long, and he never grew much bigger than that. I'm sure he was not well taken. Like, they just didn't know it. Yeah, never. It just didn't. It wasn't good. And he would jump at my face if I was even leaned over to look in the tank. And of course, he would miss me, go right out of the tank and on the floor, and I would pick him up. And there was one particular time when I got a coral. I was putting it in there for him. It was a frog spawn. And I had it just where I wanted it on the rock, but I still had my hand like on it. And he ran over and started like pounding on my fingers. And you know what your reaction is? You go like this to get your hand out. Well, some of the glue stuck to my finger, and the coral went flying across the room and splatted right against the window and
Oh.
just slid down. It was like I was laughing. I was laughing so hard I was crying. It was so funny. He
I
didn't
was
hurt
cursing.
me. He was too small to hurt me, but yeah, they're
Yeah.
just, oh boy.
It's really cool. Like I watched them do it, like, because I'm like, what the hell is happening there? So they just like they go put their mouth on the rock and then they just like fin as hard as they can.
Yeah,
and
yeah,
like,
they dig
peter
it.
out. It's really cool to watch, but also like incredibly frustrating when they're like changing everything and then like upending expensive bits of coral. So, but anyway,
Well-
at the end, I did manage to get the aquascape that I wanted, but it was an exercise in frustration fighting with the clowns.
I haven't watched your most recent video. I have to watch that. I saw it come in. We'll share. My female clownfish has torn baskets off of power heads when she didn't want it where I put it. And there had been a power head. It needed cleaning. I took it out. I scraped the glass where it was. That's my habit. So that when the magnet goes back on, it sticks really well, because these are nano power heads. They're not meant to be on 1/2-inch glass or whatever it is, 16 millimeters. And by the time I got the power head back, they had decided that's where they wanted to be. So I put the power head in, and I came back later, and here it is in pieces all over the sand. The impeller's hanging out. The basket is under a rock. It was unbelievable. So I put it back in. Same thing happened again, and then I just gave up and I moved it up higher.
Alex, are these mushrooms that she's fanning?
Yeah, so just to give you an idea of the size of the territory that my gold stripes have taken, they have dug this pit. The anemone has been here forever. She just threw something on top of the bubble coral. Thanks. But yeah, she'll dig these rocks out, which she's buried half the mushrooms before. This piece of frog spawn on the end here, it was in another spot, and I was like, well, I want to glue it up. Yeah, I had it all super glued. It was good. Had the flow pumps come back on, and I see it's falling off the next day. And I'm like, what's going on? And yeah, she didn't like it there. It was too close to her sea anemone. Even though it's like 1.5 feet away.
Wow.
They're fun.
Yeah, gold stripes have always been my personal favorite. So when I didn't even buy these two as a pair. I went to my LFS and he had imported some, and he's like, oh, well. I was like, oh, well, you got a big one and a little one. I was like, I bet they'd pair up because they were next to each other. And I was like, can you put them together for me? And he's like, I'm not doing that. He's like, you want to buy them? You know, he's a good friend of mine. I was like, oh, well, I was like, well, when I worked in stores, we used to do the same thing, and we just paired them up, and you usually know pretty quickly if they liked each other. And these two hated each other for 2 or 3 months. She took the anemone over, and he was only allowed over here. And
a restraining order.
over 2 months or 3 months, he started slowly working his way over and was accepted. So, and now they lay eggs periodically. So, which I don't think they have any right now. But
what family are? I don't know what the genetic terms. So I know there's Clarkies and Ocellaris and Percula, and I know some of them are like mine are Amphiprion Percula. Is that right? So where do the gold stripes belong in there? Are they like related to Clarkies or some of the more aggressive ones?
I haven't even looked them up. I've always known them for so long. It's just gold stripe maroons. I don't even know anymore.
I'm getting that info for you. I
was gonna say somebody could Google it.
They're actually all the same genus.
Uh-huh.
They're
is
all
that
the same genus.
Is that Amphiprion?
You are correct. And let's see. Sorry, what's their name?
Gold stripe maroons.
Gold stripe Maroon clownfish. Biaculatus. So let's see. Biaculatus. Dun, 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 dun.
Well, I know Unimaculatus is single spot, so
It's not in the phylogeny.
that's my fox face. Siganus unimaculatus.
I'm looking at the file. I believe they're like related to. No, wait, that doesn't make sense because. Okay. Yeah, sorry. This thing doesn't make sense. Okay, I have to find another evolutionary tree. All right. Well, I'm on it. I like
Awesome. Lance P in the comments has a question. We can look at that. Hey, Lance P, nice to see you. How long would you wait to replace some SPS after a bout of RTN? And why would some RTN and some not? I am really not an SPS expert. I've had some good luck lately, but not enough for me to realistically help you out here. So what about you, Alex?
I don't know. I wish I could answer that question.
I bet you Amro would have
Yes.
some great
So
input.
Was it just restricted to a single or one or two colonies lands, or did it nuke your entire system, the RTN?
Let's see if he can answer that in
'Cause
the
If
comments.
you'll never be able to keep every single Acropora species in your tank happy. At least I haven't been able to. So one or two dying, but everything else is doing great. Then it doesn't. I wouldn't. That would be like a specific frag problem and not like a whole tank problem. But if you're noticing that multiple things are suffering, then you have to kind of look at something that like a pest and an Acropora pest that might be affecting multiple species, and in which case you would want to fix that before you add anything new.
Right. So really it's a matter of trying to figure out what the source of the problem is, how widespread it is.
So Lance said some acros. So when you say some, like 10%, 20%, 50% of your SPS?
Some acros, some bird's nest.
Or we're just talking about, but not all acros and not Montes.
Oh, we have David L. Hello, David L. And Drama D. He's currently getting his tank wet. That's always exciting. And Robert Poorman is asking, are those teal pallies that you have there, Alex? Oh.
Teal pallies.
Teal pallies.
Let me flip it back around here.
Good night, Pierre Fish Girl. Thanks for stopping by.
Okay. Throw the filter on here. Teal pallies. Oh, I got some that are in the blue-green area there. I can't remember what the heck they're called. I forget those whole. Let me go top down here.
Lance P says not all acros and no Montes and about 30% of his SPS in total. Yeah,
that sounds a little bit high. I would like try to troubleshoot, like start with the parameters, light, make sure that you're giving them the right par, and maybe check for pests, because like a third seems a little bit on the high side to just be like a couple of unhappy frags.
Yeah, that sounds like there's something more going on there.
Yeah, when it happened to me, I could see a zone of death around my return nozzle. And it was really, really clear that it was something that had been in the water that just killed a whole bunch of stuff. You know, Alex, I look at your tank and I cannot believe how it has grown in since those early days. It's just mind blowing.
Oh yeah, it's still kind of a blows my mind away. Well, like the Zoa garden here, which I should just call the Nirvana Pally garden, but
Yeah.
I have to do some weeding over here because they've been getting a little too aggressive in their growth. But I do have those kind of green, blue, teal pallies. There's a question being asked.
Yeah, I wonder whether it was because the teal or green blue pallies are the ones that are like have the toxin. I don't know whether that was the reason behind the question.
Well, I got the nuclear greens too. I know those always
Yeah.
get labeled as such. My rainbow bubble tips have been starting to split more often now.
Oh.
Everything's been growing pretty crazy in here. My zinnia is still, it's just starting to branch out now.
Wow. You know what? It does look bigger than the last time we saw it. That was several weeks ago.
Yeah, I was going to say, so there's my fist at about equal height of it. So that gives you an idea how big giant zinnia is.
Wow. Even the individual polyps look big.
Oh yeah, it's real big. I mean, the stalk's probably, it's as tall as my hand. So it's, 6-8 inches tall.
Jeepers.
My pink stereonyptia is growing out really nicely. I just cut a little tiny frag of it to put in the frag tank.
Oh, really? Wow. That's a really nice color.
Yeah, it's been coming along good. The soft coral section's looking good. My toadstool's self-fragging itself now.
Oh, yeah. The beginning of the end.
Yeah, I got to get in there and just cut it and finish it, but other priorities.
Yep. I think I'm going to have to remove my Tyree neon green toadstool and cut the stem off, like just cut it, because the stem itself has gotten to be about 10 inches tall and the crown is like a spade shape and it's literally falling apart. So I'm thinking I'm going to frag the last of the skirt off of it, and it's just going to be a round top, and I'll cut it and put it on another rock and see if I can start growing it again, because it seems to be declining. It still puts out its polyps, but it frequently falls over and I have to stand it up again, and it just is looking rough.
Okay, I got a solution on what your clownfish and what genus it is. So actually, it's not what did we say it was? Amphiprion. It's actually
yeah.
Premnus. And so it's weird. it's the only species in that genus, and that genus is closely related to Amphiprion, but it's not Amphiprion. It's really weird. I don't know what the scientific evidence for actually splitting them and leading to this one, the maroon clownfish, being in its own separate genus. But according to the latest research, it is the single species in this different genus from Amphiprion, which I think is kind of interesting. Yeah.
Do you think some of the Premnas then are part of some of this designer clownfish breeding? I'm just looking at them, and they really are unique looking. I mean, much like skunk clowns are unique looking. They're still clownfish, but they look different, you know.
But that, like, that's the thing, right? Like, are they any different than like skunks or tomato clownfish?
Yeah.
I mean, why I'm really curious about this. Actually, I'm going to do a little bit more research to figure out why is it its own genus. Sometimes taxonomy could be a little bit subjective, and a lot of it could be just like I mean, there's clearly differences between the maroon clownfish and all the other clownfish. But why is it not grouped with Amphiprion, and why is it its own genus? I'm going to do a little bit more research to figure out, because this is curious. But yeah, I had no idea. I thought all of the anemone fish we in the hobby were all part of Amphiprion.
Yeah, it's interesting. Maybe they come from a different part of the world, or somewhere, you know, like some fish in the Red Sea are the same types of fish as elsewhere, except that they've evolved a little differently.
Yeah. So they're originally, the maroon anemone fish is originally from Australia, but then you have other amphiprions from Australia. So I'm really curious.
Oh,
A
cool.
scientific mystery.
Yes.
She's not so thrilled about the viewing box being above her.
Of course.
Oh.
So, you know, it's pretty common when I'm scuba diving, and whenever I go near to an anemone with clownfish in it, they just dart and they like smack you in the mask. So this is kind of what you're doing. You're coming down with a piece of shiny glass that's probably reflecting like another anemone with other clownfish that are like, hey, who are you?
Yeah, wait a minute.
Yeah, they're interesting. She's never actually whacked me before when I got my hands in the tank, but she'll start posturing quite a bit. So kind of interesting to see, that's for sure. But yeah, I mean, their area that they've dug out around this thing, I mean, this is from a couple feet, well, probably about 3 feet above the anemone right now. And so I'd say they got like almost 4 square feet that they basically have excavated to some level.
Wow, that's crazy.
So.
Oh, we lost Amro for a second there.
Yeah, I clicked the close button by accident.
Bubble corals are looking good, though.
Wow. Yeah, Robert Poorman, who had asked about the teal tally, said he's been hearing about palitoxins.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're not cutting up giant hunks of them and handling them raw, and you're not boiling rocks.
Mm-hmm.
I think for the most part, it's fairly low risk.
Yeah, or scraping them with a wire brush and no mask. Goggles and gloves. Goggles and gloves, no mask. That's how I got it. Robert Poorman also is wondering what the parameters are of your tank, Alex. What you normally keep things at, because you've got all one system, right?
Yeah, everything's connected as one. So my alkalinity, I've been running that around 8.3, 8.6 area right now. Mag's usually right in that 1350 slot. Calcium's usually right in the somewhere around 400. I'll be honest, I haven't been testing my alk or my mag lately. Phosphates generally running about 0.04 to 0.1, and nitrates are usually running about 10.
Interesting. Oh, hey,
So,
Straight Reefer. Ooh, now we're in the red room. Someone was commenting that you have a mantis, Alex. I think it was JV said, Alex has a mantis? Miss Stabby Stabby.
yeah, sorry, no, figures. I come up and she just went in her hole. Yeah, she lives in the refugium tank, which is getting on to red light time, but yeah, she's got the run of this tank other than a green serpent star in there with her. I've thought about doing some more mantis in separate tanks. We'll see. Maybe one day we'll get there.
So is it true that they can break glass, or is that just a myth?
For the most part, that's a myth. A really big smasher has the power and the strength to do it potentially, but it had to be generally a pretty thin piece of glass in an exceptionally large mantis.
Oh.
And probably like the location too, right? Because like their pane of glass has some like weakness points, and
yeah, I mean it's all going to depend on it would more than likely have to be a piece of plate and like a real thin, like a 5, something that would be on like a 2.5 gallon or 5 gallon, or I don't even know if they could even make it to break a 10 gallon thickness of glass. But hey, if it has a structural point in it that's weak, I mean, it's always possible.
Oh, hey, Amro. Braveheart Reefer 525 said it's the only clown with a spine on its cheek.
yeah, that's excellent. But why a whole different genus, right? I mean,
yeah,
it's. I mean, there is some arbitrary in taxonomy, and typically there's some differences that. I mean, I would actually like to see what the genetic distance between the maroon clownfish and all the other clownfish with. My feeling is that it was just kind of named by somebody who thought it was like a big deal that it has a spine, and they made it a different genus. But my feeling is that I'm actually gonna do this. I'm gonna look at the genetics and figure out whether the divergence is really that great that that the split would have happened a really, really long time ago versus 5 or 6 million years, which is like kind of typically the divergence of species within a genus.
Oh, interesting. Well, my favorite complaint lately about taxonomy is grouping lobophilia, welsophilia, trachophilia, and symphilia all into lobophilia, because they all have distinct characteristics. And when you look at a lobophilia, you know
don't
it's
get me
not
started about like world taxonomy. It's a pet peeve
well,
of mine.
you know what I mean? It's just, and that's fairly recent. And now when you say lobophilia, you don't know. I mean, when I say symphilia, I know exactly what that looks like. Or welsophilia or trachophilia. I mean, I know welsos and trachees are close enough to be the same thing, and really that they were probably not correctly separated originally. But I'm sorry, I don't know.
I don't know. To me, like, wesophilia's got a flat bottom, trachee's got a triangular base.
Yeah.
I mean,
true.
But I know that stuff can go all over the place, and I just stay out of that. I just stay out of that piece.
Yeah. Well, I like to know what I'm getting, right? So when you do the research, it really helps to know the name. And that's why one thing, I mean, my pet peeve on Instagram is people who show gorgeous, gorgeous coral and they don't say what it is. And I mean, I guess some people know all the corals, but I really wish they would. Yeah, Wally Reef is asking what is living in the refugium. Oh, she just ducked down again.
Oh, it's so hard to tell with the red light on because she's yellow in color. I could see her eyes looking
saw
up
that.
at me.
Yep, when you first moved in there, you could see her eyes. But then, I mean,
She's
we know where
looking.
to look. We know where to look now because of having seen her before.
She's slowly peeking her head out.
She wants to know if you've got that long stick with the food. Oh, yeah, I can see her.
She ate yesterday, so she saw me getting her food prepared out here and was ready for it. So she's been really hungry lately.
Oh, do they produce eggs or anything just without a male present? Is that a natural thing for them?
I've never had that happen. I've seen some people that they've gotten them and they got a clutch, but there's a handful of species that will make pairs, but the majority of them are pretty solitary in their life, and they have their territories. But there she is. Where's she gonna zip back in? I would be very cautious on trying to house a couple of the same species together.
Yeah.
I don't even know how to sex them.
Yeah.
Or if it's even really possible.
I've arbitrarily decided that my Tomini Tang is a female. I have no idea.
Yeah.
Oh, JV says there's a video somewhere on YouTube of one breaking a champagne glass.
Yeah, that's thin enough. I can see that.
Yeah. Oh, good night, Romans Reef. Cool.
Okay, I've solved the mystery. Is there a way that I could share my screen?
You know, there is supposed to be a screen share feature, but I think it only works if you're on a computer. I can't do it when I'm on my iPad.
I can't share my screen. Okay, all right. So let me see if I could do this. Can I? Let's see. Share screen. Sharing screening with blah blah blah. Don't show these tips again.
I'll let you guys go through that here. I'm gonna assemble this pump for final assembly here.
Nice. I'm just gonna pop Chase V in as well here.
Can you?
He can maybe chat. Okay.
Can you guys see my screen?
Yep. There we go. Awesome.
Wait, so this is the latest paper from 2019 by. Well, I'm not going to pronounce his name, but anyway, it's a new paper, and so here is the evolutionary tree, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so all of these are clownfish. This is your maroon clownfish, right? And all the other ones are amphibians. And the way that works is if you look at the maroon clownfish, its closest sister is the sister species would be Ocellaris, which is like the typical clownfish, right?
Yep.
And then the way this works is all of these guys. Can you see the mouse? Or yeah. So all of these guys are amphibians, right? So that means the ancestor at this point in the tree was amphibian. And then here it's ambiguous, but there is one amphibian that means essentially what I'm saying is that the way that they named this, it probably was named a long time ago before they had phylogeny. They had some genetics to kind of reconstruct the tree, and they just called it a different genus. But it's very clearly, all of these guys are amphibian, and it's very closely related to amphibian. So this is most likely, I mean, they called it a different genus, but for all intents and purposes, it is coming out of amphibian. So
Oh,
They just
interesting.
called it a different genus. I don't know why, but somebody had the way it works is whoever discovers a species gets to kind of name it and place it in a genus. So perhaps this person who named it the maroon clownfish thought it was different enough from Amphiprion, but this tree clearly shows that it comes out of the other Amphiprions.
Cool. I love how they've got the anemones identified. So I guess, Alex, does your clownfish live in an Antacmea quadricolor? That's interesting.
I'm gonna stop sharing my screen now.
Woo, infinity.
Sorry, I got silicone on my hands right now, so unmuting might take a minute.
No, you're unmuted right now.
Okay.
And I'm gonna take this opportunity to say goodnight, guys. So it was a lot of fun. I'm glad we were able to do a little bit of science, solve the mysteries of the maroon clownfish, but and why it's in a different genus. So.
Well, there you go. I love it when Amaryl talks paper. Oh yeah, yeah. We love the science. That's awesome.
Well, good night, guys. Bye.
Thanks,
Have a good
Amaryl.
night.
Night.
Good night. That was great. And we have Chase V here.
Yeah, just hanging out.
Nice. Wow, we still have 38 people. That's great. So Alex, what stage are you at right now with putting your pump back together?
I'm in final reassembly, so I'm kind of cheating a bit with putting my
On
volute
the
back
focus
on.
stage.
Because while it is just a bolted together piece, I found that putting silicone on it as kind of a safety feature to make sure that it seals is a really good idea.
Uh-huh.
Now I just gotta line it up, and then now I'm gonna start putting all my bolts through.
Hey Roscoe, what up with you? Awesome.
Well, I guess I can't hear Alex.
Oh, you
That's
can't
why,
hear Alex?
That's why I said he was focusing, because I thought he was just silent.
Oh,
But,
does anybody hear me?
yeah, I don't know what's up with that.
I can hear you. You might have to go out and come back, Chase. Sometimes
me
this
try that.
happens. Yeah. I'll let you right back in.
Yeah, the fun parts of maintenance. Pump reassembly.
I have to say, after all these years, that's one of the things I'm most proud of, is how I can take apart a whole pump and put it back together again without extra parts that I just throw down the sink somewhere, right?
Yeah, that always is fun when you're reassembling something and you realize that there's something missing at the very end. You're like, uh-oh. That was supposed to go. You know, I've it hasn't happened in a long time, but I've reassembled these pumps and forgot the gasket that goes between the two halves of the volute. That was
boy.
real fun when I realized that.
Well, I can relate. When I take apart my skimmer pump, there is an O-ring and it's white. And of course the body of the skimmer or the pump is also white plastic. And more than once I have missed putting that thing back in and wondered why I can't get everything clamped together properly, or I put it in the wrong spot and nothing will squeeze down. And probably the first and second time I did it, I actually had to go back and watch my own video to figure out what the heck I was doing wrong. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a fun thing to do here every now and then, but at least when it's done, this thing will be on hot standby if I need it.
Yeah. Yeah, that's kind
nice.
of along the lines of putting equipment away clean. I really believe in doing that. So Chase, you've got some colors again. Have you got anything new lately?
Nothing too new. I've been putting off getting a bunch of new corals just because I'm working on getting the display tank, and I don't want to, put more stuff at risk for a transfer.
Yeah.
That's. Oh yeah, my lights just went off in there. That's still probably 3 months out or so, but so I'm just trying to be patient. But I've been itching to go to my LFS, and I just like going there and talking with my friend there. But
yeah,
if I go there, I'm bound to buy stuff. So I'm just trying to. Lockdowns made that a little easier, but even still, I've done one curbside thing with him.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, nothing crazy. I moved my big Monty over here, into the frag system. That big scrolling one. I mean, it's not big by Alex's standards, but
that's the one with the blue edge on it, right?
Yeah, it's the blueberry fields. It has the blue polyps.
Right, beautiful.
Made a couple frags in the process of the move, so that's nice. Happens.
Nice, yeah.
I had one over there that I had moved originally, and it was about half white just from shadowing, and it's got all its color back. So,
isn't it amazing how fast that happens? I had that happen with my starburst when I fragged it. So much of it was in the shade, and I had a couple of pieces that just had maybe a ½ inch along the edge with where you could see very, very pale tissue, and they completely colored up and got polyps in probably under 2 weeks. It was amazing.
Yeah, even the frag that I attached both of these yesterday morning, I believe, and the one on the left is about half green and half just kind of white skeleton, and I can already see a very, very thin layer on the side that was the white skeleton of just like that kind of green hue kind of poking through already, and it's just been like a day and a half, and I'm like, wow, that's it's just starving for light. But
yeah, it's pretty amazing.
But still alive.
There's a question here from Robert Poorman about bacteria, and I have used bacteria, but very, very sparingly. It's not something I've gotten into much, and so I don't know a lot about it. And he's just saying he started Microbacter 7 to supplement his no-pox regime. Would it be bad to use other bacterias in conjunction? I'm assuming that the no-pox is to feed the Microbacter, because Microbacter's bacteria and no-pox is bacteria food. That's the reasoning behind that. I don't know. Any ideas, Alex and Chase, on combining other types of bacteria together?
It probably won't hurt. I mean, I'm not a big doser of bacteria myself. You could look to see what strains or species they have if they list them, but generally, the way I've always looked at bacteria dosing is that there is a natural balance in your tank. Even if you add a ton of it, it's only going to get to a certain population that can sustain off of the resources it needs for food. And then it will just kind of stop consuming, and adding more might actually create a waste problem. But you're not seeing negative effects. It shouldn't really hurt anything.
Yeah, I guess it's one of those cases where start with a real small dose just to see what happens, just like anything. Anything to do with bacteria and bacterial colonies and things like that, I really think you have to go slow, because you're just asking for trouble if you overdose it. I mean, maybe that's one of the causes of the white slime too, is the bacterial bloom that you get with putting the wrong things together. Yeah, I don't know enough about it. I would have to really, really do a lot of reading into, as you said, if you could find out which particular strains they were, That would probably help. Plus, you Alex, you haven't needed it because you got the real live rock.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't buy a lot of it either. I mean, I got about
Yep.
60 pounds of live rock and 60 pounds of live sand, and
Yep.
I didn't dose anything. I didn't throw raw shrimp in it. Just
Yep.
let it go.
Yep.
Yeah, I would just
Okay.
I would just wonder what he's trying to achieve with the two of those.
Yeah, I
what his
guess
goals are.
what's the goal? Good question. Reefing with O has a couple comments. No-pox and microbacter do different things. No-pox feeds denitrifying bacteria. Microbacter consumes organic compounds safe to use together. Not sure about combining them with other bacteria. Yeah, that's true. I would do a lot more research before getting into it, just like any other product, so that you know what it is, how it works, and why you're using it. Because if you can answer those 3 questions and the answers make sense, then it's probably safe to go ahead if you can accomplish what you want to accomplish. Yeah, lots of people. Reducing nitrates is his goal. Interesting.
Yeah, go ahead.
I was just going to say, I honestly would just start with the microbacter if he just wants to reduce nitrates, although I know No-Pox is branded to do that as well, but I hesitate to add too many things, even 2 things at one time, because if you have a problematic side effect, you can't pinpoint it for sure. So I've found that the Microbacter 7 does do a good job at keeping at knocking your nutrients down, in my experience, particularly phosphates, but my nitrates are low, kind of baseline, between 0.5 and 1, so I don't see a huge drop in those, but I would just start with one and then consider the other, maybe, if you're not getting the result you want.
Mm-hmm.
And
just
my experience with nitrates, I want to know how high they are to be dosing bacteria for that. But the thing about the bacteria that consume nitrates is they have a very specific environment they need to live in. They're anaerobic, so they got to live in an area without oxygen. So
it's something like less than 7% or something like that they won't survive.
Yeah,
if it's more than that.
And generally, and this has been my experience with it, is that the bacteria naturally occur, and there's a balance that's had in your nitrifying cycle of bacteria within your tank. And if you're having high nitrates and a high excess in them, I would really be looking to understand what is the source of your nitrates in your system. Typically, filter socks, canister filters, filter pads, anything that has a media in it that has the ability to trap food or organics that could break down in a really high oxygen environment, that will allow, the ammonia, the breakdown from ammonia to nitrite to nitrate, but there's too much oxygen to get the other end of that and denitrify. So I always find that it's important to understand what's the source of what's happening.
And Alex, that end stage in the anaerobic environment is what gives you nitrogen gas? That's what the bacteria do? They convert it to nitrogen gas.
Yeah, and a lot of times, like, you'll see things like I've made denitrifying reactors before, and basically it's just a low oxygen environment you make with a high surface area for bacteria. You can feed glucose, or like they'll do sulfur denitrators where they'll feed off of the media. Same thing with dosing bacteria, it's got to have a place to survive in order for it to really do the work. But if you get good denitrification going, it'll generally take care of the issue. But a lot of times I find it's just understanding what the problem is first.
Yeah. Well, in the old days, it was the deep sand bed, right?
That does do it some. I mean, your live rock and even dry rock will naturally do it. And my position on it has been that, at least because of experience I've had, where I've had things like my first saltwater tank had 80 plus part per million of nitrate. Could do water changes, barely touch it, constantly at 80. And it took me years to figure out what it was. And it wasn't until I really understood that the canister filters, and then this is really going back, quicksand filters were overly efficient at the front end of the nitrogen cycle. And while they were great biological filters, they really poorly contributed to your nitrates. But when I added a denitrification filter, it basically eliminated that problem.
Interesting. Yeah, so much goes on in there that you'll never know everything that's going on. I've did 2 canister filters running on the holding tank, and on the weekend I opened the newest one, the one I most recently set up, and I cleaned it. And when I opened it up, it didn't look that bad. And I left the salt water in the canister body while I took the media trays out. I rinsed all of the sponges, and the water when I was finished was disgusting. So it was a lot dirtier than it actually looked. So that's something I'm going to have to really be careful of with this other tank, because I don't have the ability to do what my sump is doing with all of my extra biomedia with the matrix pebbles and all that kind of thing. I just have to hope that there's enough in the canisters to handle that. And I won't know until I get everything over there.
It's a hard balance these days, because we do such, like, I feel like the hobby's kind of focused on like a heavy in, heavy out, lots of, we're adding a lot of things to the tank, and we also have a lot of great equipment to take things out, and it's hard to find that, to balance those two now that we do that so much, to find that good fine line of nitrates, phosphates, and all that stuff. So. And
I think it's human nature, the whole magic pill thing. Every time a new product comes along, like, honestly, what the heck were you just talking about, Alec? Just something you said made me want to go out and get that product and try it, and I can't remember now what it was, so it's probably a good thing. but you hear happens. Somebody, you hear somebody talking about something, and you think, oh, I wonder what that would do, like whether I should be using that. Yeah. Well, there's some.
I spent many years trying those things and then just going, wow, this didn't really help or made things worse.
Well, Robert Poorman is asking too, what is a denitrification filter?
Hold on, let me close this door.
I remember when Blue Carbon Reefing, the first couple of videos of his I ran across, he used a sulfur denitrator. And he has a 350-gallon display, I think, with another couple hundred gallons, around a 500-gallon system. And I remember talking in the comments with him about how many decades it would take to turn over his whole water volume with the effluent rate after it went through the sulfur denitrator. It was pretty interesting.
Yeah, it literally, the concept is incredibly simple. It's to make a oxygen-free environment with a high surface area. And the best way to do that, you want to do like 1 drop a second through it. Whether or not you use the sulfur media, I think there's, the ones I did, I never did that. and it work, where I know that will accelerate it. But yeah, it's really simple. And a lot of times, like when I first heard it, I did one that used 100 feet of airline tubing inside of a PVC pipe, and it worked really well. Unfortunately, airline will clog over time, but I had taken the tank down before that problem occurred. But yeah, I mean, just having a media in there, or different types of media, and really slow water flow. Darkness will also help, and just let it go slow and give it it takes a couple months to get colonized properly, and then it'll start reducing.
Oh boy,
It's interesting.
This is sounding like something I'm gonna have to try.
It's a good DIY project. I'll give it that. I never put one on this system because my nitrates haven't gotten out of control, but I have an area I designated for one if I needed it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Well, these are all the things I have to try and plan out for my setup, how I'm going to arrange the sump and everything, because I don't want to run into the problem I have now, which is constantly adding on and adding on and adding on. And as I said, I know that you can never get it set up so that it's perfect from the start, but the more space, the better. And if you have the space, what the heck, why not make it available, right?
Yeah.
Definitely.
I would highly encourage, if you want a DIY project, a denitrification filter is a great, easy one to do.
Awesome. Skookumchuck is asking what the coral is with the orange polyps. That is a devil's eye chalice. That's what I know it as. I'm gonna lean this way. I call it the birthday coral because I got it for my birthday one year. I think 2018 maybe. I've had it for a couple of years. It started out as a 3/4 inch frag, and it is really cool. It gets yellow in it as well. All those little spikes on it are yellow. It does get sweeper tentacles, but they're only maybe 2 inches long, and they don't come out very often. That's what that is.
Nice. I love birthday corals. The guy at my LFS, he'll usually throw me a little frag or something on my birthday.
Yeah, I went to my LFS yesterday to pick up the Cinerina, and I actually had bought it over Instagram in late April, and so they babysat it for me until it was more possible to go. They still do curbside, and I got some pond plants and some sea chem reef calcium. I'm going old school because I used that stuff years ago, and it's simple, it's super concentrated, and it works. And I'm tired of mixing powder into water and it doesn't all dissolve, or it heats up so you're scared to shake the bottle, or all of that kind of thing. So I'm going to go back to the simple stuff for the holding tank, just to keep it basic. The less I have to do, the better, because it's not in my house. And it was kind of nice to go there, and I know exactly what you mean, Chase, when you were talking about you like to shoot the breeze a little bit, but you can't when there's a lineup that's going around the corner, of course, because everybody's 6 feet apart. But there were probably 10 or 12 people in line, and this was late in the afternoon, around 4 o'clock. And it didn't feel right to just chat, right? So get my stuff and I took him some Kato because I had to do the harvest. So I was glad that I was able to at least not have to throw it in the trash. So. Yeah, you don't know what you've got till it's gone, right? So true. Oh, here's a good question. Chili Will's Reef. Hello, Chili Will's Reef. Would you reuse your reef sand if cleaned often? I'm looking around my microphone thing for an aquarium upgrade if cleaned often. So if you keep your sandbag clean, would it be suitable to reuse it in an upgrade? I don't know. I guess it depends how much gunk is in it.
I'm in trouble. I don't clean my sand bed.
I mean, what I've done is, like, I've had really dirty old tanks that I've transferred, and I've taken the sand out and rinsed it over and over again. You just have to do that with the understanding. I mean, you can get it clean. You have to do that with the understanding that, you're not going to maintain the bacteria life in it that way. And if you want to do like an immediate transfer, you got to be more selective if you're going to have, you don't want to dig out a bunch of old dirty sand and try to put it in a brand new tank. But I think you can rinse it, clean it, get it good to go again, just like you would dry rock, and put it in a new tank. But you're going to have to recycle and reseed and that kind of thing.
Yeah, that's a really good point. Depends what your objective is. If it's just to save some money, because I mean, sand is not cheap anymore. You can easily spend a couple $100s on it, and if you're able to clean it really well, you can't expect it to be cycled and ready to go. But if you're hoping to use it to help you jumpstart a cycle in a new tank, then I don't know if I would use a lot of it. Maybe a decent amount just for whatever bacteria it does have. So I guess it depends on what you're trying to achieve. You're right. Is it save money? Is it jumpstart a cycle? Is it because you like that particular kind of sand and you can't get it anymore?
Yeah, I would say you'd have to do some really heavy cleaning if you're going to dry it out. An immediate transfer, I would say I would probably scrape some top layers. I would recommend looking at samples from different areas with a microscope and just seeing what level of microfauna you have, or even going through it, see if you got your micro brittle stars and beneficial worms, and take those layers. But you can't let them sit. They basically gotta go from one active system to another. Because if it dies off, that's what's gonna hurt you in a move.
That's so true, because if it's going from one system to another and it's a new tank or an upgrade, it's not necessarily going from a live system to a live system. I mean, that's why I set up my 90, 3-4 months ago, because I want it to be a live system for when I move the pieces of my reef into it. And I'm still really unsure how it's going to go.
Yeah. I think, and to just add to Alex's point, I think if you're doing a transfer and you take sand out and put it in a 5-gallon bucket, even for like a week, and just let it sit, you can run into some real problems if you try to utilize that sand again.
Well, I don't know if you guys follow Gallery Aquatica, but they just did a recent video about relocating what they call the Euphilia. What is it called? It's a large lagoon. It's loaded with Euphilia, but they were moving it within a house, and when they emptied it, he put someone in charge of getting all the sand out, and they put it in a tote, and he said they forgot about it. So this is a week later, and he lifted the lid up, and it had what looked like a layer of white, like gel all over the surface of it. And he used his finger, and he could like cut through it with his finger, and it just peeled back. And he said the smell was disgusting. And when I saw that, I thought, see, that's what happened in my algae scrubber when I left it sitting in a warm environment, moist, didn't circulate for a week. When I took it out and I spilled some into my sump, some of that water, that's what makes me convinced. And seeing that just reinforced the idea that I poisoned my tank with anoxic water, because it had been sitting there. It wasn't much. I bet it wasn't even a cup. And it was pretty bad. So if you do let it sit without, I guess like anything, even like rock, if you can put it in a container and have water and flow and the proper temperature, you might be able to maintain it if it's sitting for a bit. I don't know about light. I guess it would depend what is living in it, but
Yeah, I think light's probably the least important of the flow and temperature for
yeah.
that. But yeah, it's amazing how funky it can get with the anoxic bacteria just thriving.
Well, especially in my case, there was some algae in that tray, and it would have rotted because of the environment, no circulation, it higher, like warm, because it's in the water. So it was not, yeah, didn't really
Not
smell
ideal.
or anything. Yeah, I did it to myself. I should have known better. Oh, Reef Marinho, hello, I'm from Brazil. Nice to see you. International live stream.
Yeah. I don't know much Portuguese, but my brother speaks it.
Oh yeah. Oh, find of the week. If you're interested in seeing a very charming couple of people who are basically sharing their life, they're an international relationship. It's a Polish girl, her name is Maria, and a Portuguese guy, his name is Dulcidio. And I ran across their channel because my daughter has a French bulldog, which, you know, we absolutely love her. And so they did a video on their French bulldog. It's called Rabbit Tales. And honestly, they talk about being in an international relationship and the mix of languages that they speak and all that kind of thing. I'm going to put the name up on here. If you want just like a little light relief from life, I highly recommend checking this out. It's worth spending some time with them. Just talking about Portuguese.
So, not to change the subject on you, but
yeah, no problem.
So Alex, is that like I know I've seen all your systems before on videos, but is that like a separate frag tank in a separate room that's on the system?
Yeah. So
that thing looks awesome.
Yeah, so it's just a 50 low boy.
Yeah.
But yeah, I changed my timing on some of my lighting so I can get a nicer blue shot. The water flows down a little because my MP10 is clogged up with macroalgae again.
Yeah.
Seems to be
that's that red stuff.
Yeah, and I think what has happened is that it grew out really fast, and I had these huge colonies, and now it's starting to get nutrient deficient, so some of it's been dying back slowly. But I hate doing it, but I've been feeding it to the fish. So,
and they like
I won't say how much it's worth potentially, but it's not the most popular of things to purchase.
So is that more like overflow from your other tanks, or is that more like intake and closer observation type stuff?
So I've changed my strategy with this tank. I had it running for a while and didn't do anything with it. And then I finally said I had some old Gen 3s that my sister gave me when I tore her system down. And I finally put the lights on, made a rack, and said, I'm going to move some things in here. And then I'll frag some stuff. But then all of my new SPS that I get in, I'm going to put them in here so that I can grow them out and watch them closer. And then once they've either grown out or I'm happy they're settled, then I'll put them into the main tank. So
nice.
I just took that stance because when I had my coral crash last summer, I had some frags that I felt that if I would have had a little closer attention to them and gotten to them easier, I might have been able to do more.
Yeah.
some of it was
Understandable.
not knowing if fish were bothering things or if I had something else going on with a pest, or I think in my case it was a water quality issue that ultimately contributed. But yeah, it's evolved into throwing everything new in and growing a bunch of stuff out.
And just to remind me, that is or is not tied into your total system?
Yeah, this is all tied together.
Oh, nice. Okay.
So yeah, this actually. So here's my main return pump. So it comes up, and then I have my bypass to pump out to the sewer, and then I put a bypass off that for the frag tank.
Okay.
So yeah, it just goes straight off there. I thought about doing a separate return, or I could probably waterfall it into like the refugium or something, but I'm just keeping it this way for now.
That looks good.
So something I planned on, because when I was installing everything, I just had the sump here, and then I go, wow, I should build something to put a frag tank up here for eventual use, and so I did that, and then finally bought a tank after a year and a half, and then it sat there another 6-8 months before I actually did something with it. Yeah, I need new frag racks. I got to buy some acrylic ones because some Halleys and Zoas have taken over, and you can't really remove them once they're in the rack.
No.
Yeah. One with the rack.
I think I'm just going to buy a bunch of small ones, and that way I could put Zoas on one and separate things out a little better.
There are frag plugs you can get that are square and small, and they're meant for egg crate. And the idea is to put them side by side, and when stuff grows out, it grows onto a plug, and then you just get a scalpel and separate them, and you've got your frag.
Yeah, that's definitely something I could do. Either way, I'm going to have to buy more egg crate, though. it's I'm not going to try cutting all those pallies off of there.
No way.
That would be a poor idea in my mind. But I have kind of done that with like my hydrophora. I got some other frag plugs around it, and the PBE Favia. I got that settled on there now.
Yeah.
Which it grew onto the rack, and I managed to get a small piece into my tank. I really like this Favia. It's one of my favorite. Just that cool shades of green.
Yeah, it looks awesome.
Nice.
So I got a war coral again. I still got to figure out where I'm going to put that, because I kind of want to give it its own rock.
I love how they look when they have their own rock and they get huge, and that's kind of how mine started in my 20-gallon nano. I put it on that big flat piece of Texas Holy Rock, and now of course it's growing off of that piece, but in the new tank it's going to get its own little peninsula so that it can get massive, because they look beautiful when you can really start to see all the different colors that come out.
Yeah, and that's what I really want with one, and I only got a couple of spaces over here that I could put it on the rock with my other Sunset Monty and the PPE, but they're eventually going to butt heads here, so I'm thinking a rock over here somewhere. Maybe.
Oh, yeah.
I'm running out of room.
Oh no, oh my god, how could you run out of room in a 480-gallon tank?
There's a lot of underutilized space in the back that I prefer to keep that way.
Yeah. Just kidding, because, after all, it's what we do. We get a bigger tank and we think, yeah, now that's going to be enough space. That sure is what happened to me. And before you know it, it's just not.
I still look at some of this and I'm just thinking, I'm like, this is 420-gallon tanks, and I can't believe how much stuff there is.
So,
It's
Alex,
crazy.
if stuff falls to the bottom, let's say, do you just leave it there, or do you try and retrieve it? Like, do you try to do anything to manage what happens naturally in here?
It depends on what it is. So the SPS pieces, I try to get those off the bottom. Unfortunately, the snails will knock them off at this point, just
Mm,
because they're just epoxy / super glued to the rocks,
yeah.
and it's just not going to be enough to hold them if a snail goes by and pushes them off. So I'll try to get them back right away. If it's little random things, I don't get too concerned. I was a little bummed though, because the one boy, the lights are getting dim here. The orange filter's almost not working. I had a nice little hairy millie that I put on the tip of this rock where there's a trocus snail at, and it fell into the nuclear green pallies, and they melted it. So
Oh.
Man.
I just found it yesterday. I'm like, I threw it in the corner just because I was like, well, maybe, but I'm like, it doesn't look like it's coming back. So, and I think that's
Sucks.
part of. Oh, go ahead.
I was just saying that sucks.
Yeah. Well, this is the one nice thing of that though, is that I grew that piece out in the frag tank, and I fragged the main frag I purchased. So even though I lost the one I mounted in here, I didn't lose the whole colony.
Yeah.
So I still have. I just had to let it grow out more, and then I'll try again. So that's the one positive thing of doing it in the frag tank, is that I can control that a little. And if I lose a few pieces in here, which it happens, I could live with that.
Yeah, the corals that I have multiples of, it does feel really nice, even if they're in the same tank, close to each other, just to have a few different frags that you can do something with. It is a nice feeling.
Yeah, it's some of the LPS and stuff that's a little more challenging, but we'll see what happens in the next few months as with Indo opened up again. I mean, once all this stuff clears out, to see if any of the Welsophilias and Trachophilias come back in at more reasonable prices. I'll probably get more of those, but they're just ridiculously expensive right now. And
Yeah.
for something that can't really be fragged ideally, I just can't. I can't do it anymore.
Yeah, some
Yeah, I
of
hear
those
ya.
solitary polyp corals are. I mean, I love them. One that I will get that I have not yet had space for is a Deschesiana, the Acanthophilias. I love those things, and they were $2,000 at Reefapalooza in Chicago last fall.
Oh my gosh.
I mean, I could never pay that much. Maybe I could trade it for frags, but I mean, $2,000 buys you a lot of salt mix and reef equipment.
Yeah, that's a pretty big investment, and I don't know. I guess I've just steered away from those. If I'm like, I can't frag that easily, and it's a real big risk, I would call it.
Yeah.
I wouldn't even be.
Yeah, it's a
Playing
gamble.
ball with
I mean, there's no two ways around it. It's always a gamble. Any coral.
Yep.
Yeah, I bought a lot of high-end SPS before my coral crash, and man, they all died. So
Yeah.
it happens, unfortunately. And the only thing I could at least feel a little better about is that they were aquacultured, so it's not the end of the world.
Yeah.
So I did get a clam back in my tank again, so which you can't really see it, but yeah, there it is. So
Nice.
no, I gotta see if I gotta talk to my LFS, and I want to see if I can get a blue rim gigas clam. So
Oh,
Oh,
yeah,
nice.
I think you were mentioning that a little while ago. And you think that are those aquacultured now?
oh yeah, no, the pretty much all giant clams for a pretty long time have been they've all been maricultured
Okay.
because they're a major food supply out in the Pacific for a lot of the island nations there.
Mm-hmm.
That was one of the reasons that they started mariculture operations was they needed them for food.
Yeah.
Huh.
How many years does it take to grow a gigas large enough to be like to be ready to harvest?
For like food or for breeding?
For what, like whatever the purpose is, if it's a farm to sell for aquariums or like for food, like what's the growth rate on those things? I guess is the question.
They can grow pretty quick. I mean, I've seen a few things out there. I know how Reef Builders has gone out to the Palawan facility, and they've talked to, they kind of gone through some of the clam farming process because he went out diving out there, and they have them out just literally right off of the seawall they have, and from what I was gathered, they do a lot of the farming there, and then they sell out the clams to other local farmers to grow them out.
Mm-hmm.
But at least in a lot of the reading I've done in the past, a lot of them aren't very colorful. The colorful ones are more rare, and those are the ones that get picked for the aquarium hobby.
Oh, I see.
So, but yeah, that's I know gigas weren't available for quite some time, but I've been seeing them again, and now that my Melanaris wrasse is gone, I shouldn't have to worry about my clam getting harassed anymore.
Nice.
Yeah, I feel pretty lucky that my green wrasse doesn't bother my Crocea clam at all. And I'm a little nervous about moving the Crocea clam to the new tank. It's probably going to be one of the last things I move.
Yeah, clams are pretty hardy animals. It's as long as things aren't picking at them, they can tolerate quite a bit. A lot of it just comes down to is making sure that all their foot and the biscuit threads are not damaged. That's probably the worst thing that could happen to a clam is its foot getting damaged severely. So if it's attached to the rock, I know you can cut the threads, but I've always just been like, just take the rock.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, it's kind of like when a sea anemone's on a rock at a local fish store, and it's just like, just give me the rock. It's on too.
Yeah.
I mean, especially if it's like a carpet or something really nice, where it's like, yeah, let's not tempt fate and tear the foot on this thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
Remember I was telling you guys that I rescued Stanley, my Crocea clam, because he was just about falling out of his little dish. He's doing extremely well. He has reoriented himself to be parallel with the sides of his dish, which of course that's how I want him. And I reached in with my long tweezers and I just sort of gently nudged him on both sides, and he's not moving. He's in there solid.
Nice.
Yeah, that's good. You'd be surprised how much they can really move when they want to.
Well, I don't know. I still don't know whether it was a snail that forced him to rotate because I had him too close to the little rock arch and the snail was crawling on the rock arch. And of course these, 3-inch diameter, well, no, that's exaggerating. 2-inch diameter turbo snails just bulldoze their way through, and I'm convinced that one of them rotated them.
Yeah, it's possible.
Hey guys, I gotta actually dip out. sorry to abruptly leave, but got to spend a little time with my family here tonight.
Yep.
So
Nice of you to come by, Chase.
Yeah.
Good to see you
yeah.
again.
Thanks for having me. Thanks for chatting, guys. Appreciate it. I'll catch you next week or the following, I'm sure.
Awesome. Good.
All righty.
Thanks,
Well,
and
have a
stay
good
safe.
night.
Yeah, have a good
You
night.
too. Hey, Alex, is that a bivalve you got there on the right?
This clam?
Yeah, what is that?
That's a clam chowder clam that I got from the seafood market. And originally, I had them in my fridge. Now it was like, I wonder if these things could live in this tank. Because I was feeding them to my puffers and triggers. And
Yeah.
the last one I threw it in here, and that was in I don't know, September, October last year. So, yeah, that's where he lives now. He's been spared from being shucked and fed to the puffers.
Well, I bought a Recordia in 2012 from a store in Oakville, Ontario that doesn't exist anymore because it was right across from a Big Al's superstore. And when Big Al's had to leave because they were going to tear their property down and build condos so they couldn't get their lease renewed, this store disappeared. And the reason I say all that is that this guy had like an unbelievable selection of Yumas that I've never seen before, the multicolored ones. And I bought 3, and they were on sale, 3 for $40.
Oh, that is cheap.
Is unbelievable. And one of them, when I put it in my tank, I noticed that the rock that it was on was kind of moving a little bit. And it turned out it's actually on a clam. It was. So the Yuma didn't survive. I put it in a Pico tank, and it melted away in the house sitter disaster. But the clam lived, and I still have that thing in my tank now, and it is still alive. So I have had it for like 7 or 8 years now. It's not very big, although it has grown. It started about the size of a quarter, and it's now probably, I want to say, 2.5 inches end to end. It's not quite round, it's an oval shape. And every once in a while, I look at it and I can see that it's open, because they open and they have the little furry edges, right, around the opening.
Yeah, this one's actually open right now.
Yeah. And so I touch it with my long pipette just to make sure that it reacts, right? It's the only way I can tell if it's still alive. And it's still alive. It closes up, and then a little while later it opens up again. So
Yeah,
I don't
actually,
know what it is, but yeah.
Yeah, I actually read about these clams a little bit because I'm like, well, where do these things actually live? Because, you usually get them at the grocery store and they're packed in ice and they're still alive. And I was like, well, are these things, living in tropical or, fairly temperate waters and that's why they still survive? And then, these guys bury themselves, and I read it's like, well, they could survive in really cold temperatures, but then they could also be on an exposed mud flat that gets like 80, 90 degrees in the summer. So it's like they could live in all kinds of temps. So I was like, well, we'll see what happens. So I actually did read that some people have had these, and if you put them in the sand bed, they'll bury themselves and move around. But I haven't moved to that point of wanting to let this guy into my reef tank and have at it in the sand. We'll see.
So,
maybe I'll try that in the future.
So if you just put it in your fish tank, like your fish only tank, the 720, if you just put it in there like that, would the puffers go after it? Like, would they be able to dig it up and get it?
Well, that tank doesn't really have sand in it, so I actually did throw one in there just to see what they would do, and they never really went after it that I could tell. I mean, these things, I gotta hit them. If I can't shuck them open, I gotta hit them with a hammer really hard to crack the shell, because it's,
Yeah.
the shell on these things is really, really thick.
Yeah.
Thicker than any, even the clown triggers and the blue line can't get through it right now without a lot of work. So
Yeah.
I think they just gave up on it because they were like, well, it would taste good, but I like the ones that Dad opens up and lets us eat.
Hey,
So-
man, peel me a grape.
Let me see if I could do something here with the lights. Well, they're almost out. Let me see if I can make this work. No, not quite dark enough yet. I'll see if I can get some bioluminescence to go fire off in one of my jugs here of bioluminescent dinoflagellates.
Awesome. Okay, I'm going to make you full screen, and everybody who's watching right now, we are looking for bioluminescence.
All right,
So
let's see. I might have to move this down just a bit. Let me see if they're firing off first. Oh, yeah, they are. I got one light that's still on. Let me... Give me 1 second here. Gonna try and block out this light.
So these are containers that you have in your mad scientist lab where you're actually growing these things, right?
Yep. I have no idea if you guys could see anything there.
Nope, I can't see anything.
Let's
Oh, there's a blue light.
give it a couple minutes here and the last light will shut off.
Yeah. Hey, Hector. Hector's asking me how everything's with the 90. It's going well. I finally got the dosing running, and the last test of ALK was 7.4. And then I thought I was good to go to start moving things, except that in my tank, the big tank, it's 9.4. So not wanting to move from alkalinity 9.4 to 7.4, I have to wait another week until they match up, because I adjusted the dosing in the Red Sea to drop the ALK slowly over the course of a week, and hopefully within that week the dosing will continue to increase on the 90 so that they meet in the middle at 8.4. And of course it's all theoretical, because I guess I'll find out when I go there and I do some testing later, like probably next Wednesday, Tuesday or Wednesday. So the fact that I have a 90-minute round trip to go there and come back adds a bit of a complication, because I can't always run over there every day. But the nice thing is I get to see my grandson when I'm there. So even if I can't get very close to him, at least it's nice to be able to see him. So I guess the short answer is slower than I would like, but nothing bad has happened yet. So Alex, you're muted. We're still looking at a black screen. Oh, there's some color.
Okay. Let's try this again. I don't know if this will be bright enough to show up here, but so I have my dinoflagellates in here.
Hey everybody, Alex is growing dinoflagellates on purpose.
Oops. All right. All right, so let me get this right up here. Again, I don't know if this is going to work, but let's try it out.
Oh, good night, Johnny Martinez. I don't know if you're still here. I missed saying good night to you when you were leaving. Chili Will's Reef is taken off for the night. Waleed Reef, can you open the light of the room? Actually, no, because the bioluminescence is only visible in complete darkness. Oh, are we seeing little dots of it?
Did someone see the little dots at all?
Yeah, I saw little dots over to the
Okay,
right.
let me try this again.
And so you have to annoy the stuff to make it flash. You're sitting in the dark with your stick stirring around in there, poking at the stuff.
Did you see any little dots?
Not right now. Not in the black.
Okay. Yeah, the camera's just not sensitive enough. They look really bright. If it makes anyone feel any better, they look really bright to me.
It was worth a try.
Let me try my other flask here. Okay. All right, here we go. Oh, so a little bit. There we go.
Oh. Oh my God, there's blue flashes. Holy smokes. That's cool.
Yeah.
Hey,
So
hey, alternate energy. Hello.
you're only seeing like a really, really small portion of what's going on in there
Wow.
because the camera doesn't really pick it up. But yeah, basically, most of those little dots in there, are all dinoflagellates.
Wow.
So
And now this is not the type of dinoflagellates that we get in our reef tank that destroy everything. Is that right? They're a different type?
yeah, so these are bioluminescent ones, so they live more in open water. Now, these, if you ever see on the news where they're like, oh, the surfers are surfing in blue waves and they got all kinds of stuff going on. They'll see dolphins swimming through bioluminescence. That's what they're swimming through is dinoflagellates.
Oh, cool.
Now, they can reach levels that it becomes like almost like a red tide where there's other stuff growing too. But these do occur naturally.
Very cool.
So, but I've been growing them in the tank now, or growing them now in beakers for a couple of months now. So
Well,
they're pretty easy.
There's a
They're
lot
pretty
of them.
easy to care for.
Yep.
You gotta split them at least once a week, or change them out into new containers.
Oh, so that's kind of like, would you remove half the water and then replenish it? And what would you feed them?
They're fed a nutrient solution, just like for phytoplankton.
Mm-hmm.
And then you got to keep them in an area where they're lit up. And that's basically it. But the main reason that you got to swap out containers with them, and I've been swapping out beakers every couple of weeks after I'll add more water after 1 week and a little more nutrient solution, and then the next week I'll swap them out to a spare container, because you'll start to get other bacteria and algae that grows, and it'll eventually consume them.
Mm-hmm.
So it's, there's that xenia all closed up kind of.
Yeah.
You can see it's starting to branch, but I mean, that thing's in some pretty heavy water flow, and it does not lean.
Wow. And the clownfish, how do they respond if you bring the light near them at this time of night? Are they pretty much tucked up for the night?
Yeah, looks like they're hanging out in that sea anemone. They just kind of hang out there, and yeah, one of them's tucked in there. I can't even see it, and the other one's in there. So yeah, I got 3 anemones now. I found out last week one of them split again. I was like, oh, I didn't know. So yeah, and then now the bubble corals are in night mode.
Yep, with the long, spiky things coming out of them.
Oh yeah, their evil side. Everything's been growing pretty good though, and just gonna let a lot of stuff go and just let it keep growing. Huh, there's an azurus snail.
Yep.
Little buggers breed like crazy in here.
Really? I wish mine would.
Yeah, this species, because I know there's a ton of different ones out there, and I got these from what was it, like Reef Cleaners or something, and they were just a small variety. They don't get any bigger than that, but yeah, I threw a sizable chunk of them in here a year and a half ago, or geez, maybe almost 2 years ago, and now there's tons of them. I'll throw food in the tank at night to start triggering bioluminescence, and a lot of times it's them triggering bioluminescent critters because they're running into them trying to get mysis pellets. Dragonface is in night mode.
It's cool how he just kind of lays against the glass like that.
He will actually, I try not to get, like, if there's something like a hatch going on in here and I hit it with a flashlight, he'll start going up into the water columns. I actually try to keep it away from him when that happens because I'm always worried he'll go right into the sea anemones or something, but
yeah,
seems to avoid them pretty good.
Yeah, Waleed Reef, yes, it is a pipefish. Marcus Aerolis, 187, hello. Misael Salas, hello. He says he's from Brazil. We have a few people from Brazil tonight. And Calypso's Reefs is talking about the beach in Puerto Rico, the bioluminescent bay, I guess.
Yep, that's same, not the same species of dinoflagellates, but yeah, same exact premise. So
that's the pufferfish.
Yeah, that's the dog face, and then here comes
what's going on.
Yeah, it's his active time now. He's like, hey, this is my time to go hang out.
Shine that light over here so I can see what I'm hunting for. Those big eyes.
Oh yeah. And then, well, let's see. I don't know where let me turn my other light off in here. Let's see if we could find the cleaner shrimp, because it's his time to come out too. The only time he comes out.
Yeah, the only time it's safe.
And well, there's the tail end of the Niger trigger. The blue line's tucked up there. Yeah. Porcupine, he's just out and about now. Spanish hogfish is back there. That black spot in the center is my green bird wrasse.
Oh, really? really? He just kind of wraps himself into the
Oh
rock.
yeah, he tucks himself away.
Huh.
It's kind of interesting because some of the fish at night, a lot of the tangs will kind of be hanging out. Like there's the flamingo just went by. There's my Picasso trigger.
Hmm.
All the triggers will be holed up in rocks with their triggers up.
Mm-hmm. So you're using a red light, so you're not actually disturbing them, right?
Yeah, most of them can't see this. They might see my shadow,
Right.
but oh, there's my clown trigger
Wow.
tucked up in the rock. But yeah, no, this time of night the cleaner shrimp comes out, and oh, there he is. I don't know if you guys could see his eyes reflecting back or not.
I
Maybe.
didn't see it. I didn't notice it.
Let me.
Yeah, I think I'm going to have to get a red flashlight because I use my just a white LED light, and I'm very careful about avoiding where I know the fish sleep at night because I don't want to startle them or, have them just jump and swim randomly and hit a rock or whatever.
Yeah, especially like the porcupine. Like I know he could probably perceive this somewhat. Yeah, the sea urchin that nobody likes.
Yeah.
This thing must taste awful. They eat long spine sea urchins like cotton candy, spines and all, but they will not touch this thing.
So many critters that I can hardly wait to try in a bigger tank.
Yeah, you're gonna have fun. I'm just waiting. I got a few more fish I want to add in the reef, and I think fish-wise I'll be done then.
Very cool. You know what I'd like to get is a staghorn crab.
Oh, the one with the what the heck coral is that growing on them?
I think it's a parietes that grows on top of them.
Yeah.
Or something like that. Oh, hey, good night, Skookum Chuck. See you next week. Maybe we can get you on here next week. I know it's a little earlier for you out on the West Coast. Hi, Chevy W. Ruger. He bought a golden dwarf moray eel. Anyone have experience with one?
I have not kept those before, but I would assume they're probably like a lot of morays and feed them a good variety of meaty foods.
Yep.
They will be escape artists, so especially when they're small, you'll have to keep an eye on tank entrances. There are places they could squeeze through. You know, the Asterina starfish are coming out now.
Is there anything you have right now in your tank that eats those?
No, and they don't really seem to harm. It doesn't seem like they're a variety that harms anything, so
Right.
I tend to be of the, if it's not hurting anything, just let it go.
Yeah.
Oh, that's a fun little sight there. The little Nazareth snail is unhappy with the Trocus snail.
I have had my turbo snails get stuck on my conch snails, and I feel bad for the conch snail because all it can do is wait until the turbo snail lets it go. But I'm sure it goes on a lot and I don't see it, so they seem to survive it, but I always feel like I need to intervene somehow. Oh, look at all this. Are those mysis shrimp? Or mysis?
Yeah, they're all mysids, so
Amazing. One of these days, I'm going to grab a sample of water from my tank on one of the nights when I have a hatch. And maybe at some point, maybe that's what I'll ask for my birthday next year or for Christmas is a microscope. And I'll examine what it actually is that is in the water when I'm seeing these. It's almost like marine snow. It is so dense. It's unbelievable. And it happens a couple times a week. And I find it hard to imagine it's living things, but maybe it is. Or maybe it's just the pistol shrimp is digging in the sand and throwing up detritus. I don't know. But this is what I get. It's like clouds of this stuff.
Oh yeah, well, I'm gonna guess that a fair amount of it's probably stuff
Like rotifers and things
hatching.
like that. Yeah. And it's kind of sad, you know, I'm going to lose a lot of that when I move over to the new tank, or to the holding tank at least.
Well, you know what though? Even if there's a little bit of it that makes it through, it'll repopulate.
Yeah, I hope so. Well, it's likely that that tank will be running for a minimum of 6 to 8 months by the time the house is done and I get a new tank built and get it in and cycled and all of that jazz.
Yeah, you only need a little bit to go a long way.
Yeah.
In the majority of all my micro life, I mean, I didn't start with a lot, so
Cool.
I mean the caulerpa in here hadn't even been growing for 2 years, and it just popped out of a rock. I mean, I had a little bit when I started the tank, and it never took off. And then one day I saw a couple ferns coming out, and I'm like, all right. The next thing I know, it's crawled up the whole backside of the tank and taken over everything else. You know, and it goes in cycles. I pulled a chunk out of it today that was starting to die back a little bit. I have the feeling that, yeah, eventually this is all going to go down, and then another one's going to take over. So,
you know, it's such a privilege to have access to this, to be able to actually look at this in our homes whenever we want. I can geek out in front of my tank for like an hour at 1 o'clock in the morning when I should be going to bed. And there's me with my flashlight and my magnifying glass.
Well, we'll make sure that once all is well and you can safely come out to the States again for a wrap or something, that I mean, you come out to the Chicago area, we'll arrange a visit. So
I would love that. Well, we loved Chicago, and you know, should things settle down and work out, we would love to go back. And you know, we were talking about it, we also love going on cruises, but I can't imagine we ever will again, because they just strike me as, you're really lucky if you don't get sick these days, just because of the way things are, you know?
Yeah, we have only gone on is it 2 cruises now, and we really enjoy them. But yeah, I mean, the last time we went, they actually had an outbreak of neurovirus on the trip before us, and it had made the news. Well, we were already in Florida and stuff, and my wife did not realize when they sent her something to say that we could get a trip credit. She thought it was for a different ship, and hadn't realized it was our ship. And it was like, we were already like, I was like, well, we'll see what happens. And I think they only ended up having like a handful of people that got sick, but they did a really good job of enforcing hand sanitizer, and you
Yeah.
couldn't even go and get food. They got everything for you. They had people that did it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, this thing's a lot different than that. But
Yeah.
yeah, I don't know when it's gonna get back to that. I don't think it'll be anytime soon.
No, me neither. Well, Carlos 23 was very kind to send me a pump, and it's at my U.S. shipping address. And I was supposed to go and get it, and I couldn't when I planned to, and then all of this happened. So they do have a service where they will pack things up and ship them across the border. It's pretty expensive, but I have 3 or 4 parcels there. And I think it's going to be worthwhile for me to do that because I honestly don't know when it's going to be safe to, or you're going to feel safe to be able to do that kind of travel because it really is non-essential, you know? It's
Yeah.
I just want to go get my stuff and I don't know. I don't know. It's a different world.
Yeah, it's gonna take a long time for things to get back to where they were, I think, but you know.
And who knows, I think to support our own economies in our own countries, we may have to start being tourists in our own countries once it's safe to, stay in hotels in various places or motels or whatever people stay in when they travel across the country. I don't know whether it's B&B or, any of those kinds of things. Hopefully, eventually that will feel safe again.
Yeah. Yeah, it's gonna be a time thing, and we'll get there eventually.
Yep. Snails are cool.
And these trochus have always been a favorite of mine.
Yep. Yeah, I think my green wrasse picks them off one at a time. I have a lot of empty shells and pretty much only turbo snails left.
Yeah, my Melanaris used to pick on them here and there, and I really did love that fish, and it just kind of randomly died one day. But at the same time, like, because I was like, oh, am I going to replace this guy? And then I'm like, nah.
Yeah, that's pretty much how I feel about the green wrasse. I've had him for 3 years, and I've had him since he was an inch long, and I would never dispose of him in any way, but I would probably not replace him if he should perish.
The only one that I've had that's been a really good behavior is my yellow chorus. He doesn't seem to really harm anything.
Yeah, I hear a lot of good things about them.
He's one of the original fish I got in this tank, and some brittle stars. I have more micro brittle stars than I know what to do with. And some of them are bioluminescent.
Wow.
Because there's a white variety that's like basically sand color, and I confirmed through a microscope that they are in fact bioluminescent. They do not like to be poked at with a stick.
Is that a sea hare or a cucumber? What is that?
Tiger tail sea cucumber that's buried underneath a rock and slowly coming out.
Wow.
Another one back there. Let's see where my big guy is. Oh, there's the big guy back there.
Oh, that yellow or kind of
Yeah,
yellow
that
brown
kind of
color?
brownish yellow. That's my big sea cucumber. That thing is about 1.5 feet long.
Oh my God.
You know, the tiger tails they can get pretty long too, but a lot of mine in this tank, I know they've been splitting. There's another one there. I get a lot of small ones because they'll split asexually. Let's see. There's a little one twisted by the rock. Yeah, there's like 3 of them right there.
Oh boy.
I haven't even done a count of them lately. Let's see. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Seven for the big guy back there. 8, 9, 10. I only added like a half dozen of them, so they've
And
been
those are just the ones you can see.
Yeah, they like to bury themselves underneath stuff, but they're such great sand cleaners.
Yeah.
They do get a bad rap, I think.
Yeah, they're one of the ones that the if they die, they can negatively affect your tank.
Generally, it's the bigger thing you got to be concerned with them is it's not all the species. And I've only actually seen one do it in an LFS, and we were trying to like pry it off a rock or something. It wouldn't let go. It'll spray out. It almost looks like a tube of silicone or toothpaste being sprayed out. And it feels like it has like a sticky texture to it, just like that. And it's like a toxin defense that they'll secrete if something's trying to eat them. They spit their guts out.
Right.
But I've only ever seen it happen one time.
Well, I imagine that the critters in the tank, the fish or whoever would try and get them, are pretty savvy to that, even instinctually.
Yeah, the wrasses have never messed with them at all. They might look at them for a sec and then they just swim away.
Yeah, wrasses are so funny. I mean, my green wrasse, as soon as I put something new in the tank, he's right over there looking at it from all angles. I think the first thought he has is, I'm going to flip that over. And so usually if it's too big, he doesn't, but he will dig around the base of it. But my new Cinerina that I just got is not real big, and I'm fully expecting when I go upstairs afterwards and get my flashlight out, it's going to be upside down in the sand.
Yeah, that's how my red cigar wrasse, I had to remove him because he started flipping all my corals.
Yeah.
So, which he's still happy in here. Yeah, he's laying on the bottom in there. half buried in sand because the tray of sand that I left them, they have dug out and sprayed all over the tank. So, yeah. I gotta get a big pump and just I got clamshells everywhere and sand all over the place. I need to kind of spray it into a corner and put it back in the tray. But everybody's settling down.
Nice.
Except you.
He wants to know what you're doing.
He's very curious. I actually saw him puff up the other week for his random exercise routine.
So do they do it in response only to stimulus, or like you just said random exercise, every once in a while he just puffs up?
Yeah, all puffers will stretch to make sure that everything's still functioning. So generally about once a week, a lot of them will do it. But, it happens so random. I just happened to walk downstairs and I saw the porcupine ball floating around. And I'm like, why can't you be in a place where I could take pictures of you better? Better behind the rock.
Yeah, why don't you do this on a regular schedule so I know when to watch for it?
Yeah, I've only triggered it one time with this guy accidentally, and that was I was cleaning the front glass off. My parents had come over and I had my dad down here. I was like, let me just wipe the front glass off. So I hit a paper towel on the front glass with RODI water. And after I wiped it down, I look in the back corner and he's puffed up. And I'm like, oops. I'm like, I didn't mean to do that, buddy.
Yeah. Oh, my fish scatter if I'm doing something and I drip water down the front glass. You put a pipette or something in and you pull it out and there's like spillover. And if I get the white towel out and wipe it, they scatter to the far corners. Freaks them out. Oh, we lost Alex. Okay, well, I guess it's good night then. And it's almost midnight anyway, but we still have 25 people watching. And so, Alex, I don't know if you hit a button and exited yourself out. There, we'll bring you back in to say goodnight. There we go. We'll bring you back
Sorry
in to
about
say
that.
goodnight, Alex.
Yeah, it's
That was
about
funny.
that
All
time,
of a
so.
sudden, I'm looking at myself on the screen.
Yeah, no,
Cool.
but thanks for having me on, and have a good night and a happy weekend.
Thank you. You too. And I appreciate the time you spent with us here tonight. It's always interesting to see what you got going on. And thank
No
you
problem.
to-
I got my pump all done, so that thing's ready to roll.
That's great. And thanks to everyone in the chat. It's been fun tonight, and we will see you again next week. And stay safe, everybody. We will get through it. Might take a while, but we're lucky we have our reef tanks to keep us busy. Oh, wait a minute. Random picture of grandchild. There he is. Such a little sweetie. That's today. Yep, he's now learned to roll over. So, okay.
Nice.
Anyway. All right, well, good night, everyone. And thanks again, Alex, and for everyone who came in tonight. It was a good
Thanks
time.
for having me.
And we'll see you next weekend. Good night.
Thanks. Good night.
Good night. Well, now, thanks so much to everyone who came along tonight, in the studio, in the chat, and watching. And to those of you who are watching the replay, thank you too for sticking around to the end. I hope you'll join me for next week's live stream, Saturday, May 30th at 9 p.m. Eastern. Stay safe, everybody.